Hi quilty friends, and welcome to my little spot in podunk. My name is Leanne, and today, as you saw, we're going to be making a pin cushion. But before we start, I wanted to go over a couple things with you. You saw this batting at the very beginning. This is 80-20 batting. I'm going to rip it up into small little pieces and use it to stuff my pin cushion with. You could also use clean sand or anything that you want, but I would suggest that if you're going to use sand, that you only use it on that bottom layer. All right, we'll also be using some fusible interfacing, and I am using this, see if I can show you, it's 906F. It's a lightweight interfacing. Of course, you don't have to have this. I just think it gives the fabric a little bit more stability so it doesn't stretch out, because as you guys know, fabric is stretchy in some directions more than it is the other, especially on that bias. That is super stretchy, and we don't want that to happen with our pin cushion. All right, so let's get started. For each one of these measurements, you're going to need to cut both fabric and interfacing. So when I say 2, I mean 2 on the interfacing and 2 on the fabric. Okay, so we've got 5.5 by 5.5. You need 2 of those. You need 2 4 by 4, 2 3 by 3. Oops, that's 3.5 by 3.5. 2 3.5 by 3.5, and then 2 3 by 3, and then 2 2.5 by 2.5. Remember, that's for both interfacing and fabric. Okay, the instructions say for the interfacing, it says cover with a damp pressed cloth with an iron set to wool/steam setting. Press for 10 seconds and move it along and repeat if you need to. Steam it on the right side. I'm not going to do that because I don't put water in my old iron, so I'm going to sort of do it the same way. So what I'm going to do is grab my first 2 fabrics, and I've put down an applique pressing sheet. You don't have to do that. I just want to protect my surface just in case, but I think you'd be fine to do it without a pressing mat. All right, so what I have is a cloth. This is a lint-free cloth that I use in my kitchen when I'm canning. I'm going to use that as a pressing sheet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray, turn these over like this. And I'm going to spray the right sides of these fabrics with water and cover them with this cloth like this. And just for 10 seconds, I'm going to hold it there, and it's going to steam because there's water on there. Here we go. We'll put our fabrics wrong side up, and this interfacing has little dots on it. See if you can see those little dots on there, and that's the side you want to touch the fabric, is that little dot side, and you can feel them. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these the same way. Now that we've got those all pressed on there, we need to trace some circles on here in order to sew the circles. So what I'm going to do is show you that there is a PDF with all the circles, and you'll be using that to trace them either with a light box or on your window. You can use a computer screen or a TV screen that's turned on. You just tape the piece of paper on there and then put your fabric on top of it, and the light will shine through and you'll be able to see this circle. What I'm going to do is turn this over so I'm drawing on the back side, and we'll zoom in a little bit. Just going to trace it right around. Whoops, that didn't work out real well, did it? right around the edge, trying to stay directly on that circle line. Okay, so there I've got my circle, and I will continue to do this with all of the shapes. I'm only going to draw the circle on one of each size. So I'm not going to do that second one. I'm just going to draw on this one, and then we'll layer them right sides together, and that's how we're going to sew them, is right sides together. I wanted to mention, and I mentioned this in my fusible raw edge applique video. If you've not seen that, I will link to it down below. But when you're tracing something, for some reason, if you sketch instead of one single solid line, if you sketch, and sketching is, you know, where you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. For some reason, it's easier to trace that way, and your line comes out almost perfect every time. And I have better luck with this than just trying to stay on that line, and I don't know why it is. And I don't remember who taught me that, but I wish I knew, because I would give them credit, because this is probably one of the handiest little tips I was ever told when it comes to crafting, and it's to sketch. You can move along really pretty quickly sketching, a lot quicker and a lot tidier than just trying to follow that line. So give it a try and tell me what you think. Okay, and there we have it. There's our last circle traced. Now we're going to head off to the sewing machine and start stitching these up. Okay, now that we're over at our sewing machine, I've layered the two smallest circles together, like this, right sides together. And what I'm going to do is stitch right on that line that we've drawn. And I've lowered my stitches, or I'm going to lower my stitches to about 1.8. So I'm just going to lower my needle down into the fabric. I'm going to do a couple stitches forward, and then a couple stitches backward to secure those stitches, and start stitching around that circle right on that line. Every once in a while, lifting up my presser foot and rotating my fabric underneath that needle. And you know, you go as fast as what you feel comfortable going, but I'm going to keep going till I get to the other side, and I have I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of space in between the stitches. I'm going to end it early, that way we've got a way to turn this right side out. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. If you get off the line, don't worry about it. Once you get it all together, you're not going to be able to tell that it's not a perfect circle. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more stitches, and then I'm going to do 2 stitches back. Well, that was 3 or 4, I don't know. And I'm going to go ahead and cut my thread. And then I will continue to do all my circles the same way. But let's get a close-up shot there so you can see those stitches. There we go. They're tiny and right on the line as much as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch up the rest of these circles, and I'll be right back. Okay, now that we've gotten all of our circles stitched around all of our circles, we're going to come in and cut about a little less than 1/4 inch away from that sewn line, all the way around the outside of all of them. Okay. We want to come in with a nice pair of sharp scissors where the tip is nice and sharp, and we want to clip almost up to that stitch line. Do not snip on that stitch line. You just want to get pretty close. You know, how close is pretty close? You want um, about 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch between the tip of the scissors and the stitch line. So we're going to do that all the way around the circle. And now what we're going to do is we're going to very carefully turn this right side out. And you may need some type of little pokey tool since we don't have much wiggle room here. But I find it just sticking my finger in there and pushing it through works fine. But you can use the tip of a scissors or a turning tool. And I have this turning tool that I've had for years. I got it when I bought a Dresden tool, and I'm just going to come in there and not with the sharp end, with the round end, and push on those seams, push them out, make sure they get, all the seams get pushed out. I don't want little pointy areas. You want to try to work those out as much as possible. And we can always come back in here and work it just a little bit more. And we can press these too to help it look better. Press it with an iron. All right, so that's looking pretty good for now. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch up the rest, or trim up the rest and turn them right side out, and then we will stuff this and I will show you how to sew up this little hole. Okay, I got all my circles turned, and what I'm going to do is just give each one of them a good press on both sides just to get those wrinkles out before we start stuffing them. Now, while I'm pressing these, if you would like to know how to make your own pressing board, that makes really flat seams, I've got a video on how I made these pressing boards, and I will link to it in the description box below. These are amazing, and they're very budget friendly, a lot more budget friendly than some of those, I'm just going to say gray mats that you see. Not that the gray mats are bad, it's just that I don't care for them. I like my homemade pressing mats best, and they do just as good a job. And I have a video that shows you the difference between my pressing mat and those pretty expensive gray ones. So now what I need to do is start stuffing. And I told you that I was going to make my own stuff, and I've already started pulling the stuffing, or the batting apart. And this is how I do it, guys. I just keep doing this until I think I have enough, and just pulling off little bitty pieces, and it's just like polyfill. Okay, we got all of our circles pressed, and now we need to stuff it. And so I'm going to get some of my stuffing stuff that I made and just stuff it down in there. You may need this little wooden tool to help you out, or a pair of scissors. Just be careful if you're using scissors that you don't poke and rip your fabric. And it doesn't take a whole lot, but you know, you want enough in there to where it's going to fill it out and make it a little bit puffy. It doesn't have to be real thick. All right, I think that's good enough. I can keep smoothing it out after I get it sewn shut, and that's what we're going to do here. And you can still see your sewn lines on there if you look really close, and that's what we're going to try to fold this fabric on, is that sewn line. Just give it a little pinch, and if you want to, you could press it with an iron if you're that talented, but I'm just going to try to pinch it right where that drawn line is. Pinch it over, and I'm making a crease. That's going to help me to sew this together by putting that crease in there. You see how when I turn it over, you can see the crease on the back? That's what we're looking for. Okay, now I'm going to do the other side the same way. And there we have it, another crease line right there. And I'm going to just fold it down on both sides and stick a pin right in the middle. Hold right on that crease on this side, and it'll just automatically want to fold since you've already smushed a crease into it. So there we go, right in the middle. Now it looks kind of wonky, kind of janky, but don't worry about that. Now you see how that already looks pretty round? Looks pretty good. We've got those pins in there. Be very careful of that one sticking out if you do this. Now I got to thread my needle. Let me get all this stuff out of the way. And I'm just using the bobbin out of my sewing machine. I'll pull some thread off of there. About 12 inches or so. 12 to 18. You don't want to go more than 18 inches. I thought I should mention too, snipping those around the circle, I use K. Buckley scissors, Karen K. Buckley scissors, and I will link to those below. I absolutely love these scissors. I've been using them for about 3 years. I've never sharpened them. You don't have to sharpen them, and those tips are still just as sharp as they were the day that I bought them, and I use them every day. That's my favorite pair of scissors. Okay, now I cannot thread a needle for diddly, guys, so I have this little hummingbird needle threader, and if they still have them on Amazon, last time I looked they didn't have them because I was wanting to buy one for a friend. If they still have them, I will link to them below. But you just take that little hummingbird beak and stick it through that needle. It's really easy to do, and honestly I cannot see the eye of that needle. Even with my glasses on, I can't see it. And then you wrap your thread around it. So you've got that loop. Let's see if you can see that loop. Get it close to that fabric. Can you see the loop? It's hard to see, I know. There we go, there's the loop. Yay! So we're going to take the hummingbird and stick her little beak right in that loop of fabric. Let me put my fingers back behind it. See her little beak? And slide it down the beak, and it'll catch on the end. There's a little notch there that I can't see. And then I'm going to grab my needle and pull it. Come on through there. And there we go. It threaded my needle for me. Ta-da! So what I'm going to do is come up back here past the first, or like the last 2 stitches that I did by machine, and I need my thimble. I don't use a thimble, guys. I use what's called a thimble pad. So these just stick on there. There's a really sticky adhesive, and it keeps that needle from going through the end of my finger. I've got calluses on my fingers from, you know, using them so much and sticking them with pins, but it's still, it gets kind of ouchy if it that needle pushes through the end of your finger. So I just pulled that up. Sorry. I'm going to take out this first pin so it doesn't stick me in the hand. I'm pinching those 2 pieces of fabric so they stay right where I want them to stay, and I can readjust them if I need to. But here's my thread. just past the last 2 stitches, and I'm going to go into, that's in the back fabric of the back circle. It's coming up out of that back circle. Now I'm going to go straight across from that thread into the front circle, and then jump back over to the back circle and come up through it. And it may be a little bit hard because we've already got stitches there, machine stitches, but it's doable. I got a little knot there, and my thread. I didn't put thread conditioner on it. I should have, but I didn't. Okay, and we're going to do that again. Just do that all the way across. We come up in that back fabric, we go down in the front, and come up in the back fabric again. And you don't want your stitch length real long. I wouldn't go any more than 1/8 of an inch. Make them as small as you can, because that will hide them and just make your project look better. But if you can't do a stitch that small, don't worry about it. You can hide it on the back side of your pincushion. No big deal. So I'm just going to keep working my way across till I get to the end. All right, that's good enough for me. Got those stitches in there. And what I want to do now is tie it off. And I'm just going to wrap my needle or my thread around my needle 3 times, and then put my needle down in the fabric anywhere close to the last stitch. And I'm going to come out anywhere on the front side. It doesn't matter where, because we're going to pull that knot down into the fabric. You should hear it kind of make a popping noise because it's going to pull through the fabric. And there it went. Did you guys hear that? It went, had a little pop. So I'm going to cut that thread, and we can just, you know, puff it out a little bit, smooth it out, try to make it as round as possible. And there we have it, just as cute as it can be, a little circle. Now I'm going to do the rest of these circles and come back and show you how to put them together. All right, I finished stitching all my circles together, and what I'm going to do now is get a needle and some embroidery thread in order to hook these all together. So I'm just going to pull out some thread. So I'm going to pull out about 18 inches or so. And find me a needle with a real good eye on it. These are bowhand needles, and they're pretty new to me. I got them as part of one of the subscription sampler boxes, and I absolutely love them. These don't bend like some of the needles do that you get nowadays. I have a problem with when I'm doing handwork, like when I'm sewing the binding on my quilts, that the needles will actually bend to where I can only get one use out of them. Okay, so let's thread this needle. And we'll try licking it. Now, another trick that people don't know is that if you lick the eye of your needle sometimes, that lubricates it. Just like you would your thread, you stick it in your mouth and it'll lubricate the eye of the needle. And most of the time, those threads will just slip right through there, like magic. Ta-da! So what I'm going to do is just tie a basic knot on the end, just so I don't pull it all the way through my Bee Skep. And I'm just going to eyeball. I got some fuzzies on there and some dog hair. It never fails, I swear. So I'm just going to eyeball, putting it through the center. If you want to be more exact, you go right ahead, but I'm not quite that perfect about it. And I'm just going to keep doing that with every one. Okay, we've made it through all the layers once. And now we're going to stick our button on there. Just come up through your button. Any size button will do. These look like they're about a 1/2 inch. Just stick it through one hole, and then I'm going to stick it through the other. And just bring it down on top of those top circle. There we go. Then we're going to start going through the center. Now what I'd like to do is, I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from where I came out. So I'm going to go down in there and then flip it up on the back and make sure that I'm close to that thread on this side, and then close to the thread on the next circle, and just keep working my way down through there. Okay, we made it all the way to the bottom of our Bee Skep. So what we're going to do is pull on that knot, and you may have to work this a little bit to get that to pull through, and go up here and pull on the threads up here. And here's my tail. See, watch my tail over here. When I pull on that top thread, it's bringing that up. Give me a good tail there. And now I can come down here and grab that knot and pull on it. I've got plenty of thread now to tie with. You can pull it down as tightly as you want or leave it as loose as you want. It's really all up to you. And there's no right or wrong here. So I'm just going to turn it over, push it down a little bit, and make a knot. Any old knot will do, whichever one you can make and it stay. So I just wrapped it through once. You can see there where I've got it wrapped through. That's my knot, not my knot, but my thread's down there by the pin cushion. So I'm just going to put my finger there and pull on that thread, and that holds that right where I want it. So now's a good time to check it to see if you like that height. And I think I'm happy with that one. Suits me just fine. It's not as big and puffy as that one, but I didn't stuff it as much. And that's why this one's a lot smoother, because I put more stuffing in it. And I'm just going to tie this again, but this time I'm going to loop it around twice. Now we're going to get a pair of scissors and just cut that thread off. That's going to be on the bottom and nobody's going to see it. So there we go. Cute little pin cushion. That one's a little bit smaller than the one I did a couple of years ago, but it's because I didn't stuff it as much. And this is how I display mine, sitting in this little ceramic bowl with I've got some pin cushions here that are little bees. Let me show those to you. I bought these a few years ago off the Jacqueline Steves website. She no longer has these. She was doing a quilt along called Save the Bees and was selling these pins. That's it, guys. Thank you for stopping by my little spot in Podunk. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe and the little bell notification. That way you never miss out on one of my videos. Until next time, I hope you find time to stitch up something sweet. I love you. Bye-bye.